welcome to another episode of Flick and the Bozman and Bozman. I don't know if we can follow that. Were we following Beethoven there?
We were following the immortal Walter Murphy.
Well, the W. Murphy, yes.
W. Murphy. He was ahead of his time or way behind his time. I'm not sure. But I love that. You can't help but just get used when you listen to that beat.
Well, how are things?
Things are good, thanks. Things are good. We're coming down to the home stretch here. Strangely enough, a quarter of the way through the baseball season. Oh wait, we're not.
We're 90% or 80%, or I don't know how far along. But that graphic on the Met game said there are 15 games left, so I'll have to trust them. Their graphics are always right.
For the Mets, but there are 25 games left for some other teams. So that's kind of the confusing things, and it's going to be weird because even yesterday and today, some teams are still having games canceled because of the coronavirus. So how the season ends up is going to be very haphazard and not according to Hoyle or whatever the term is. But you look at the standings, and the American League seems pretty well set as far as the top 8 teams.
Yeah, give me those 8. Just run it down again, because as I was watching the Mets last night against the Blue Jays, playing in Buffalo, of course. I'm like, is this a playoff team, the Blue Jays? I thought they were, and the Mets were blowing them out and didn't blow the lead. Didn't even come close to blowing the lead. So that was shocking. But they're a playoff team, right?
The Jays are in and should really be in, no matter what happens. So running it down, the A's and the Rays essentially are tied for the best record in the American League. The White Sox are half a game behind, if that means anything. The 3 second-place teams are the Twins, the Blue Jays, and the Astros.
With the Astros are into second now. Okay, that I should know, and I didn't know.
The Astros are kind of fading, but they're 22 and 23,
Okay.
and they still are, 3 games ahead of the Mariners for that second place spot in the AL West. And then the 2 wild card teams would be Cleveland and the Yankees. So the Yankees are finally out of a bit of a tailspin they've been in the last couple of weeks. And I think starting to get healthy. They're at 24 and 21, having swept a doubleheader from the Orioles yesterday, and that puts them 3.5 games ahead of the Orioles for the last wild card spot. So the closest match right now, the closest race in the American League, is the Astros versus the 19 and 25 Mariners. So not exactly riveting playoff chase in the American League.
So it sounds, and I heard this from other places, but I didn't know the teams. It sounds like there might be no races the last 3 or 4 games. Is that possible in the AL?
Yeah, I think it seems likely. I mean, if you look according to ESPN, 7 of the 8 teams have at least a 90% chance of making playoffs right now, and so it seems like, and a couple of them are at 100%, even though they don't actually have a playoff spot locked. It would be really hard for them to lose a playoff spot, basically statistically impossible, but not actually impossible.
Not actually possible.
If they lost all their games and another team.
Yeah, and there's so many of matchups with, at least in the NL, with teams that are fighting for spots playing against each other. When, as Met fans, I'm looking at it and like, oh, great, someone's going to lose this game. I don't know if I'm necessarily rooting for Florida or Philly or, when Milwaukee's involved or teams like that. And I'm like, someone's going to lose.
So by my count, there are 3 teams that are essentially out in the National League, and the other 12 are still fighting for those 8 spots. You got 4 teams that are in, right? It's the Dodgers, Braves, and Cubs. They're in, and as division winners and division leaders right now. And the Padres are also in with the second best record in the National League.
Okay,
so at 29-17.
So that leaves, you got to tell me the other second place teams.
So the other second place teams, besides the Padres, are the Phillies and the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 19-19, and they've played. I believe I'm right in this. They played the fewest games in the majors, so they still have 22 games left. Um, right? Is that the math right?
Yes,
30, 38 minus 60
you
minus.
mathed that correctly.
All right. Um, so they have a lot of way to go. The Marlins also have a lot of games to play. They are the first wild card team right now at 21-20, and the Giants are at 23-22. So those are your four playoff teams after those top four teams, counting the Padres as one of the top four teams, even though they're not a division leader. They're those. So the Phillies out of those four have the best record at 2 games over 500. And then after those four, the Rockies are 2 under, the Brewers are 2 under, the Mets are 3 under, and the Reds are 5 under. So the Reds are kind of on the fringe. They've got 15 games left. They're 5 under. They could make a run, but you'd think they would have by now. The Mets are starting to, in the last month or so, last few weeks, I should say, so far this month, starting to actually hit with runners in scoring position. They were hitting, they just weren't hitting with men on. And I joked with you the other day, the old Tommy Lasorda line. I'd rather get him on and not get him in than not get him on. Uh,
But it's frustrating as heck watching as a fan.
right,
You,
exactly. Oh, and Alonso in particular is still struggling with putting that on the ball unless he's hitting a solo or maybe 2 run homer.
yeah, and
Uh,
how many times there's a leadoff double and just nothing? No,
yeah,
I'm not saying they should try to steal third, but they never even get guys over to third.
right, right. Uh,
It seems. Now I'm watching, as you can tell by my knowledge of the other league and the records of these other teams. I'm pretty much just watching the Mets, and they'll cut in with other scores and things like that. And I was up in Rhode Island for a day and a half, and could only get the Red Sox game. So I won't say I wouldn't watch or never watch, but I pretty much am out of the loop when it comes to some of these other teams. And it seems like the Mets don't do the little things well enough, or haven't. They're doing it slightly better, as you said, over the last week or so.
yeah, well, one of the keys to that has been Jeff McNeil sort of reemerging uh, back to what he was in his first 2 years, and he's hitting what 320 or something like that now. After even a couple weeks ago, he was only hitting like 260.
Well, I'm gonna throw it out there. He had a catch not as good as Conforto's catch this week, but McNeil had a catch. Yeah, I don't know, 20, 25 games ago, where he really hit his head
Yeah,
hard on the wall, and he took a couple games off after it, maybe DH'd once or twice. But I don't think he was right for another 5 to 10 games after that.
no, I think that's correct from my estimation as well. However, at the time, he was only hitting like 280.
Yeah.
So even then, he hadn't really been doing Jeff McNeil type things. In the past, he'd been much more of a 320 type hitter, and that's where he is, right? So, and he started to actually hit the ball with power now too, um, with I think 4 home runs in the last week or so. So he's been huge. And you mentioned Conforto. People are actually talking, and I don't know who exactly, but people are talking about him as a potential MVP candidate. The
I
Mets.
saw I saw a list of somebody put out of their top 5 candidates in the NL,
Yeah,
and Conforto was not on that list, and I couldn't make a good argument that he should be ahead of any of those guys. And I forget who the guys are. They were all hitting no pitchers, but this person who assembled the 5 candidate list, I thought they were all having better years than Conforto. If you want to tell me Conforto's sixth or seventh, great. He is having a super year, and he plays every day, and he's playing better defense.
yeah,
I don't think he's an MVP category candidate, but he's getting close, and that's good.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably going to be Tatis or Betts, right, as your MVP. Uh, and but just to have a guy in the conversation is something new for Mets fans, and it's been a long time. Uh,
Overall, is Soto having a better year?
I'd have to look up his numbers, to be honest with
Yeah, I want to say he was the person who put out that list of five. I want to say he was candidate 4 or 5.
you. Yeah,
So I didn't see Conforto. I didn't see a need for Conforto to be in the top 5 candidates right now, and if he's not now, I don't think he's going to get there. But he's having a very solid year, and he plays every day, and
yeah,
uh, doing a nice job. Seems to be taking some of the team leadership role, and that's good to see. Also, he
yeah,
should after 5 years.
yeah. By wins above replacement, Tatis is far and away the best in everyday player in baseball. Um, Mike Yastrzemski is actually second in the National League, tied with Trey Turner
Okay,
and and Mookie Betts.
Mookie
Uh,
Betts was certainly on that list of 5 I saw.
Trevor Story for the Rockies is a hair behind them, and then Freddie Freeman. I don't see Soto on this list. Uh, Ian Happ for the Cubs is next, and then Conforto. So,
Okay,
uh, going
he's
down.
probably in the 6 to 10 range somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
So
is fine. That's what I want from him. If you told me McNeil is somewhere in the top 20 players in the NL and Conforto's in the top 10 and Alonso is hitting a reasonable average and a reasonable number of home runs, that's an offense we can work with. I mean, again, it's probably selective because I don't particularly like the guy as a player and he doesn't do the little things well, like defense. But Ramos kills so many rallies, and it's,
yeah,
it's yeah. And I hopefully that came across as joking about defense being a little thing for a catcher. It's not, and I don't think he particularly calls good games or fields the position well, and doesn't hit for average and runs slower than me. Uh, he better hit some.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean Ramos has been bad. Last year he was passable because he hit uh, a decent amount. Um, but for the Mets offense, you're leaving out arguably their MVP up until the last couple of weeks, and most consistent guy on the season, which is Dom Smith, who's
Yeah,
just outstanding. Um, by wins above replacement, he's a good cut below Fordo on the season, but he's in the top echelon in the National League in doubles and in RBIs for a guy who has not played every day. Was not going to play every day to start the season, and due to injuries and with the advent of the DH to the National League, he's sort of worked his way into the Mets' plan to now be an anchor in their lineup, and a guy that I like to see up there with when you need a big hit.
yeah, and he puts the ball in play and does a lot of good things. He actually plays a pretty good first base too
Yep.
when that happens. But when he's not at first, DH, it works. And when when they put the lineup on the screen and you see him 6th or 7th, you're thinking, well, we got a pretty deep lineup today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
When you
Absolutely.
see Marisnik 4th, you go, what the heck are we doing? But
That only happened the once. No, I don't even know. Merzic hasn't been.
Frazier was 4th once, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, here,
Merzic usually has not been terrible, by the way, which is shocking to me. Uh,
if I gave you probably your dream job and said for one day you can put together the Met lineup using the players they have now, you can't get Russell Martin catching today. But
ah,
what do you put on the field as the players in the lineup right now? And don't necessarily put it in terms of righty lefty. You have an average pitcher going. Give me your best lineup. You need to score 19 runs or something like that.
an average pitcher for the Mets other than DeGrom. Uh,
No, yeah, yeah,
yeah, 19 would be about right. So I mean, I think you start out with Nemo leading off. He's got a good on base percentage. He doesn't hit for a terribly high average, but he does get on. I put McNeil batting second, um, and I would probably play him at second. Um, No, I think I'd put him in left. I think I'd want to have Jimenez and Guillorme in, and probably Davis. I'd probably sit um, kind of all over the place. I probably sit Cano because although he's had a good year, I think he's it was mostly a huge start and he's been pretty average since then.
So you're gonna sit him, put Pete or put Dom at first, and Pete DHing, or vice
Yeah,
versa.
yeah, Dom at first and Pete DHing,
Okay.
Conforto obviously in right, and you suck it up and go with Ramos because as bad as he is, his OPS is actually over 380, which is something you can't say about uh, Robinson Chirinos. Um,
No.
through
And
OPS, just to be
yeah.
clear, not on base percentage, on base plus slugging, on base plus
Oh,
slugging.
it's terrible. It's terrible. And
That's
they've had
that's
other
pretty
random guys
bad.
catching this
If I
year,
can
and
use that term still, epic. That is, or I don't know how you can possibly have an OPS that low.
ah,
Anyway, in being in
God.
professional baseball. So did I get to everybody? I think shortstop is Jimenez and second base Guillorme, and I'd stick Davis at third. Um, if you want to switch Davis and McNeil by outfield position, outfield and third base, it's
So
probably.
is Rosario a Met next year?
Uh, if it was up to me, I would do what they should have done a couple years ago. Send him back to the minors and teach him how to be a center fielder and teach him how to play baseball. And if that can't, if he can't or won't do that, uh, then I would try to trade him for whatever you can get.
Okay,
A lot of times a shortstop can make a good center fielder,
I'm not against trying it.
and he's got too much talent to just turn him loose.
That's what they keep telling me.
And you see flashes of it. I mean, he clearly has.
I,
But the
me,
Mets fortunes are going to rise and fall on their starting pitching. Their bullpen actually is seemingly, I think, rounding into shape
oh boy,
as Diaz
is this
actually
wood? This is wood. Okay,
has his yeah. Well,
knocking on
you can
something.
use the head if you like. Mine's always good. Um, Diaz actually has a decent ERA on the season. It's under 2 now. Familia's is under 4 now. Brock is healthy. He's got like a 1.5. Um, Shreve has been very good. Um, so they've got guys that they can count on, and I think they figured out who they can't. And Batanzas on the DL helps uh,
Helps.
because yeah, whatever. Um, he's yeah, and Gethelman on the DL helps. Um, Hopefully, Matz will come back because I do think he will make a good relief pitcher. But he's got 1 inning so far this year, and I think he had 2 last year. So uh, the jury is out certainly on that. Um, but they're starting to round in on the offense on the bullpen. I came up with I hinted to you last night. I came up with a line about their rotation, and that's Jake and Seth and save your breath.
I don't want to hear the others.
That's where it is. I mean, it's not rain won't do it. You just don't even start. They're bad. They're bad.
They're bad, and
At least Lugo hopefully can give us 5 plus innings tonight. Um, and Jake is Jake. I mean, good lord.
well, they managed to get a save last night and save the bullpen. I don't know how they did both those things, but
They
it's
got
a
to
good
stay.
trick if you can pull it off.
They got to. Oh, did somebody go the last 3? I didn't even pay
So,
it.
somebody went the last three, and a friend, one of our experts on our poll said, "Who was that guy?" I have no idea who it was. He pitched
Uh-oh.
well, but the other team was also down by 15 or so at the time, so I can't say that we're trying too hard.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Uh,
So, what do you think from here? You think they got to get to 30 wins, 31?
you 30 will have a chance. I mean, you look again going back to the uh, standings now.
That's what I was trying to tie it all together.
30's got a chance. 31 should have a very good chance to get in. So they'll be there. That means they got to get 10 more wins out of their last what's that
That's
say
10-5 from here.
to get to 31.
Yeah.
9-6. But on the flip side, they are stepping up in class here, where they're going to play the Jays for a couple more. They got the Braves coming up, and the Phillies and the Rays before I think they finish up the season. Not in any particular order, those series, but and then they finish up the season with the Nationals. So maybe they got a chance to get a 4-game sweep of Washington and make a run at it. But
Is it unfair to think I hope the Rays have nothing to play for?
yeah, absolutely, it's a good thing to think. But the Rays are I don't think are built to, like, they're a very deep team as far as I can tell. So even if you get your B team, they're probably
Yeah.
as good as the Mets.
Hey, I was scared last night when Toronto brought in the Met prospect K out of the bullpen, but
Yeah,
they hit
yeah,
him pretty hard, so
yeah. That was all right.
that
Um,
that worked out okay. That's how I always feel about the Mets this year. Is I don't scoreboard watch too much. I'm not rooting for other things to happen. I think when they're playing well, 10-5 doesn't scare me. They can
it,
go 10-5 against these teams. It's their play scares me. They're just days where they're so lackadaisical and not just 3 innings go by when they're down by two and you're like, gosh, it's been 6-4 forever. Come on, dude. How about steal a base? Move a guy along. But
yeah,
no,
yeah,
I know I'm talking like I'm 51 and oh wait, I am 51. So I know that's not the way it's played anymore, but it seems like when the Mets play well, 10-5 is not a problem against whoever. If you told me they had to go 10-5 against the Braves, fine. The Braves don't scare me.
Well, as much as those listed off those teams, Baltimore, they went 1-1 against the Phillies, who are playing well, are still, their run differential is pretty much right where the Mets is, actually less than the Mets right now, a lower run differential.
Phillies have a terrible bullpen and they have to play 20 games in 20 days or something like that.
Yeah,
They're they're going to give up a ton of runs.
yeah. No, the Jays are a winning team, and they have a good, a better than average, or at least they did, run differential before
You heard
last.
about the Wheeler injury that he's going to need a day or two?
Yeah, yeah. Steve Hernandez, by the way, had a great. Just I wanted to learn more about this. He goes, "Oh yeah, I've had that happen to me."
I had that happen to me. I'm still now. I'm going to be very careful the next few times putting on jeans. All right, there's a button there. I think I got this under control.
I think he said something about there should be a lawsuit or something like that. And
Well, Wheeler said in a quote that he actually fell over.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know what happened there. But anyway, we should turn to something different. And because I have it out here, you ready to take on some trivia?
Trivia time. Trivia time.
Trivia time. I don't think you're ready. Oh, I think a couple are very good. We cover a lot of sports in these 6 questions. I think I hit 5 different sports, so we'll have to see if you can handle that. Your first question is going to be a baseball question. And it's about a famous pitcher who turns 80 today on September the 12th. Best known for 3 complete game victories in the 1968 World Series.
3 complete game victories in the 1968. I'm supposed to name this pitcher.
You are.
I will say former Met, Mickey Lolich.
I like it, Mickey. All right, got it down there. All right, we switch it over to football for number 2. Can you tell me the MVP last year? That's not your question, but
The MVP of the National Football League last year.
this is not even your question,
That
so I
was
hope
Lamar
you can get this.
Jackson. He was the MVP.
Who was the MVP?
Lamar.
Lamar Jackson was. So, if he repeats, he will be the first repeat winner since this player.
That's Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning. Not Eli. You want Peyton. Peyton
pretty sure Eli never won a regular season MVP.
Okay, Peyton Manning.
Nor should he.
We're going to take it over to question 3, and the sport we're going to ask the Bozman about is golf.
Oh boy.
I need
Ernie
the current number 1 ranked male golfer in the world.
It's not probably not Ernie Els. Um,
Probably not.
uh,
I will say this golfer won a slightly scary amount of money this week.
that gives me a pretty good feeling about my guess. I think I saw that Dustin Johnson won a scary amount of money this week.
I won't confirm that it was Dustin Johnson, but they said coming up you can watch this $15 million putt. I'm like, what? I don't think I want to watch that, but you're going with Dustin Johnson. So we got Mickey Lolich, Peyton Manning, and Dustin Johnson. Okay, you ready for number 4?
Ready as
I don't think you are, but I'll try it anyway. Who played the ring announcer in Rocky 3, 4, and 5? Now that's only one person, same guy.
Same
And
guy.
I know you deny the existence of a Rocky 5, but I'm going to make you answer a question about it.
There never was a Rocky 5. They went right to Rocky 6.
There's a hint if you need it.
I would love the hint because I have no idea.
He's more famous for a different profession than acting, and that profession is as an artist.
That must be Salvador Dali.
Salvador Dali. That's
Count of Monte Cristo.
There are some good nicknames in there. Master Disaster, King of Sting. Salvador Dali. Okay, if you disagree with the Bozman on that one, you can email us at flickboz@gmail.com, or even with the technology of 5 years ago, you can go on Twitter to @flickboz and get a hold of us there. If you disagree on any of these answers so far, especially number 4. Number 5, I have some facts. I'm not sure how to make it a question, but I'm going to go with this. There was a 29-9 score this week in baseball.
Yes, correct.
That score had never happened before as a final score.
Okay.
You're going to believe me on that.
I'm also going to say true.
The last time there was a new score, final score, was 24-12 when the Reds beat the Rockies. I want within 2 years, I need the year that game took place.
The Reds beat the Rockies 24-12.
That was the first time. This week's 29-9 was the first time there was a unique new score since 24-12.
That happened in 1998.
1998, and I've given you a little cushion. You got to be within 2.
Yeah, I think I used my cushion too well because I think the Rockies were a new team in '97.
Well, you got to think about those things. You got to help yourself out there.
Not good test-taking strategy.
No, that's test-taking strategies. Yes, I've sometimes put answers that I knew were not correct because they covered more area where the incorrect answer could come in. All right, but anyway, that leads us to number 6, and it's going to be a sport we haven't covered yet today. And that sport is?
Polo.
Tennis.
Oh.
The men's and women's U.S. Open tennis finals take place this weekend. I need you to name both one woman and one man in their respective finals.
Well, I know that Serena lost yesterday, and that would have been yesterday, I think it was. That would have been my best chance to get one of the women.
I know.
And I believe a Polish guy won yesterday. Next,
The judges were not going to be able to accept that. I'm sorry.
the strange thing about the Polish guy is he doesn't have a name ending in ski. But other than that, I really I don't even have a good guess. I don't know. I don't know is the answer.
What if I gave you the rankings? Would that help at all?
No, no.
It would stall long enough for you to get into a search engine. All right.
Joe Eisner and
Isner.
is
Isner. I'll go with Isner. And
who
who for the females?
clearly lost 4 rounds ago. Uh, Joe. Um, and Medvedev.
Medvedev for the female?
I don't know. That might have been somebody left over from the Boston Toronto series.
Yeah. Oh, for our game 7 polls, yes. So you got Isner and Medvedev as your answers. You went with for question 5. You went to 1998, the last time there was a new final score. You went with the artist Salvador Dali as the ring announcer in Rockies 3, 4, and 5. Could be right. I don't know. You went with Dustin Johnson as the current number 1 male golfer, Peyton Manning as the last back-to-back NFL MVP, and Mickey Lolich as the 1968 World Series star.
There you go.
There you go. That's trivia.
That is trivia time.
Hey, you did it. That's trivia time. And you referenced it a couple times before we talk about our beloved, and there might be a better word in there, Jets and Giants. We can knock out a couple of these game 7s. We're down to just 8 games remaining. As what was the best game 7 in any sport of the last 40 years?
Or
I'm
60.
sorry, last 60 years, all the way back to 1960. And one of our nominees today is from 1960, and that brings up a rare flick in the Bozman controversy here, as the 1960 World Series is one of the candidates, and the Boz did not vote for that one last time, but it's still advanced. Is he now still allowed to vote for it or not? I've talked to the judges, and yes, it's eligible for your vote.
All right. Well, that
After
doesn't
a long conference. We got
that
the
doesn't-
1960 World Series against the 2001 World Series. Which was the better game 7 in your eyes?
So just because I'm allowed to do it doesn't necessarily mean it's right that I should do it, or just because it's legal doesn't make it right. That's I'm just going to go out there and say that. But that
I
doesn't.
got that in a fortune cookie once.
Uh, interesting. So let's start with the '01 World Series. This was some would say sort of the beginning of the end of the Yankee dynasty of the '90s. They had won 4 of the previous 5 World Series. They would get back to the World Series in 2003, and of course they have been largely competitive every year. Uh, Probably since 1995. But this was the last time they would win. They would win only one more World Series with sort of the core 4, if you will, in that in 2009. For the Diamondbacks, this was their 4th year in existence, and unlike the Marlins, who won in, we'll talk about in a minute, who won in '97 in the 5th year of their existence, they did not break up the team afterwards, which is why I think I have less revulsion for them buying. They stayed within the league rules. They bought the team.
Getting
They were
out all the vocabulary today. Wow.
uh, revulsion, is that the word?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
good level word.
okay, but they kept the team together in 2002, and they made the playoffs again. The 2001 Diamondbacks, I read, hold the distinction of being the oldest roster by player age in World Series history.
So they
Uh,
held together an old team,
they
is what
held
you're
the
saying.
whole team for a couple more years, and then after 2002, it became apparent that it was time to start selling people off. Schilling ended up going to the Red Sox, and and the various players started to retire and move on. So we go back to the game seven. It was um, a good pitchers matchup between Schilling and Clemens to start. Um, Clemens certainly should have and would have been a Hall of Famer had he not had the drug controversies. Schilling probably would be a borderline Hall of Famer if he wasn't a knucklehead. Um, and I'm not sure whether that should play. This is not the time or place to argue about that. But they both pitched pretty well through the first six. The Diamondbacks took the early lead. They early took the lead, 1-0 in the bottom of the sixth. The Yankees got one in the seventh and one in the eighth before turning it over to Mariano. Mariano struck out the side in the bottom of the eighth, as he was wont to do, including Luis Gonzalez, Matt Williams, and Danny Batista. And then came back out to start the ninth. Gives up a leadoff single to Grace. Has a throwing error on a bunt attempt by Damian Miller to put runners on first and second and nobody out. And then on the next at bat, Jay Bell tries to bunt them over to second and third, and he throws out Grace at third. But Brocious decided not to try to go for the double play. And then Womack hits a double down the line.
That was really a key point. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. And so that made it 2-2 with the pinch runner scoring. And then you had second and third. They hit Craig Counsell to load up the bases, and then Gonzalez floated one over the drawn infield. And as we talked about in the past, that just drawing in the infield by Torrey was somewhat controversial or ill-advised, at least, in that Tim McCarver noted right before the pitch that Mariano had a tendency to saw people off, which created a lot of little floaters to the middle of the diamond, and then that was exactly that.
I think somehow McCarver went forward in time 2 minutes and then came back. Yes, that was incredible. But I also don't. You could make a good argument either way. Bring him in, don't bring him in, even if,
Yeah.
bring Slice. So I don't look at that as deciding the game. I think tying it up was almost bigger than taking the lead, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so. And doing it off of Mariano,
Right.
going back to Rocky, it was like the Russians cut. It's like, hey, we
Yeah,
can.
I kind of think the Yankees already blew their shot there, and
Yeah,
not blew it. I think Arizona took it from them.
yeah. No, they just outplayed them, and that Mariano had a key error in the sequence certainly plays into it. Um, Interestingly, and maybe only to me, the 2001 World Series is the first World Series, the second World Series, I should say, since 1945 to feature three former Cubs, the other one being the 1960 World Series.
There you go. Both involve the Yankees and both involve ex Cubs. I don't know who they were offhand, but that's a. The Cubs were so desperate to win one, they were keeping track of their former players winning. No, that doesn't count. Sorry, we can't give
I
you
think it was more the line of the Cubs are so cursed you don't even want to have more than two of them on your team.
that. So,
Uh,
all that talk about the 2001 World Series, does it win your vote?
well, you got to go back to the '60 '60 World Series.
That
So
was your
I'm not
transition.
going to go into it too deeply. Here's what I'm going to say about the
He's a
1960.
professional here, folks. The Bozman. All right.
Absolutely. So two things that are interesting about the '60 World Series before I'll give you the reason why I'm picking it. One, the Yankees outscored the Pirates by, was it 24 runs, I think, in the 7-game series. I had this written down somewhere. Uh,
That was the file you deleted, I think.
it was the file I deleted. I rewrote it down though, and the answer is, yeah, I didn't come up with it. 27. They scored him by
27.
outscored him by 28. The Pirates scored 27 runs. The Yankees scored 55 runs.
The gap was more than they scored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, the one so and then sorry, I gave you one other thing is that it was the Yankees. That series featured 7 past, present, or future MVPs, uh, which
Jeez.
is I think the most ever. The Pirates had 2, Dick Rode and Roberto Clemente. The Yankees had 5 who won a total of 10 MVPs in their careers,
Gosh.
including Maris, who had won in 60 and 61. Mantle would win in 62, and then Nelson Howard would win in 63. And then the Yankees wouldn't have another MVP until Thurman Munson in '76. The Yankees hit 10 home runs in that World Series. The Pirates hit 4, but they hit 3 of their home runs in Game 7.
Everything that could go right did.
It did it. And speaking of things going right, when the Pirates were down 7-4 in the 8th inning, in the middle of their rally, I didn't write down who had the hit, but Tony Kubek went to field a double play ball and it hit a pebble and bounced up and hit him in the face. And instead of being a double play, it was a 2 on and nobody out. And then Clemente hit a Baltimore chop, and then Hal Smith, the backup catcher, hits a 3-run homer to go from 7-6 to 9-7. Yankees tie it up in Game 9, and then Mazeroski does his thing. But here's the thing. Here's why the 1960 World Series has to win. If you go to Pittsburgh today, there is
Right now?
Forbes, yes, today, right now, anytime from today until anytime in the future. Forbes Field obviously has been dismantled, but home plate is still there, and Mazeroski's wall is still there. Tell me any other
No.
that they did that with when they tore it down.
No, I think I'd be at a loss.
So Pirates advance.
Pirates advance, and that was well summed up and well stated. And the 1960 World Series, due to your vote, will have enough to advance. Yes, there was one of our experts held out and went for the 2001 World Series, but it was actually not all that close. I voted for 1960 as well, as did 2 of our experts, and as did the huge amount of people who voted on Twitter.
Yes.
And the other matchup today, if you want to knock it out, we have our one remaining hockey series out of the final 8 Game 7s, and that's the 2003 Eastern quarterfinals with Boston against Toronto, and that goes up against the World Series you mentioned, the 1997 Marlins against the Indians. Take it away, and not to put pressure on you, but your vote will decide it.
Oh, that is awesome. Uh, Frankly, I look at these two and I'm not sure that either one deserves to be here.
Oh
Uh,
my god.
However,
Wait,
if you
I got to tell the bracket commissioner and the people seeding this, and oh wait, it's all me. Okay, I told them all. They're all disappointed in you. These are the 1 and 2 seeds of the South bracket.
the '97 World Series uh, features the Indians and the Marlins. The Marlins at that time were the youngest team, meaning that the earliest to when they had become a team, not as opposed to the Diamondbacks, who had been the oldest by player age, and the Diamondbacks became the most recent. I don't even know how to say it. They were 4 years old as a franchise when they won. The Marlins were 5 years old as a franchise when they.
Maybe because I've known you for how many years, I understand you completely.
That is scary. That is scary. Um,
We're coming up on 40, probably. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
knowing each other.
yeah, exactly.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
so to me, the reason why I would vote against the Marlins World Series, probably for the third time in a row, um, in particular, is when you look at the 11th inning, uh, the key error by Fernandez that uh, played into the winning rally. The council should have had an inning ending double play there, and then they walk Eisenreich, and then you had a fielder's choice. Uh, where they could have Fernandez probably could have tried to go for a double play, but they throw home and get the out of Bonilla for the second out, and then it's just it's a little base hit up the middle. Um, so the lack of solid play to me plays into it. Um, and one interesting note, if it's interesting only to me, Jose Mesa blew the lead, I think, in the ninth inning there, and Omar Vizquel apparently uh, wrote a biography in which he called Mesa a choker, and the two good friends have never spoken to each other since. And
Oof.
Mesa had vowed to hit him every time he faced him, which he only did twice out of the remaining times that he faced him, apparently. So that is the reason why I'm not overly amped up to pick the Boston Toronto series, although that Game 7 was a very exciting game, as it was a first round playoff matchup.
Yeah, it was a four. I looked at it, it was a 4 seed versus a 5 seed. I think last time we dealt with this game, I may have had their seedings wrong, but they were a 4 and 5 in the Eastern quarterfinals.
Now, Boston did go on to make to the Stanley Cup Finals and lose to Chicago that year. Um, but you had, they were down 3-1 in the series to Toronto, and Toronto, I think, is still looking for their first Stanley Cup since the 1960s or something. Um, uh, and then they were down 4-1 with 5 minutes left in the game.
I've read 8 somewhere, but
I'm sorry, it was 10 minutes left in the game.
okay,
They scored to make it 4-2.
yeah, that may have been it.
And then it was still 4-2 with just 2 minutes left. Boston pulls their goalie.
Well, the
Uh,
goalie.
Lucic goal makes it 4-3. Bergeron scores with 50 seconds left to tie the game. They almost uh, scored in regulation
That's the incredible part.
to win it. And then it was 6 minutes left, or 6 minutes into the overtime. Bergeron scored the game-winning
Yeah,
goal.
overtime wasn't that long.
Um, and there was a flurry of shots on the net, and Bergeron picked up one of the rebounds and shot it home for the win. So, playoff hockey and overtime playoff hockey is always great, as has been illuminated here before. I despise the Marlins as a franchise. I don't think they should have a franchise in Miami as poorly run as it's been over the last 25, 30 years. And it irks me that they have as many World Series titles as the Mets. Um, so I would be glad if they lost.
Well, they have lost.
Yeah.
They have lost. The hockey advances. This is you can get on the seeding committee as much as you'd like, but this is the number 1 seed in the North and the number 1 seed in the South advancing. But uh, if they end up playing each other in the semifinals, I'll have to check the bracket. The 60 World Series may have an edge. We both picked that one, and we both picked the hockey to advance, and they both will advance. And next time we do a show, we got a couple games in our East bracket and a couple in the West. So again, those email addresses and Twitter address I gave you, you can get the information on there, and feel free to email and call us a bunch of dummies, or on the YouTube site you can comment there. Our guy who we did the shout out to last week commented he appreciated that very much.
All
So
right.
we got at least somebody out there listening.
Somebody's out there somewhere.
Someone out there somewhere. We got a couple minutes before we should wrap it up, but neither of us have football teams we're too excited about this year. But take a couple minutes on the Giants.
So this has been obviously a very weird offseason, particularly for the NFL, but in general, obviously it's been a weird year. Um, but no preseason. You look at it. So here's what I was looking at when I was trying to do some research on the Giants. You had a 4-win team last year that probably should have been a 3-win team and should have had the number 2 overall pick, but they couldn't lose week 16 when both were future teams, and they Giants ended up winning in overtime in the second to last game of the season. So it's a bad team to start, right? And they deserve to be a bad team as you looked at the team. So how would you assess how bad they were? Usually, the two things that that I love Bill Barnwell about is on ESPN, because he talks about the two biggest factors for determining if a team is earned their record or not is their record in close games and their turnover ratio, and then the third thing being their injuries. I didn't look up the Giants' injuries. I apologize. Uh, so the Giants' record in close games last year, decided by 7 points or less, was 2-5. Um, but when you look closer at those games, several of those games were ones that the Giants scored late to make it a close game. So they really weren't close games except on the scoreboard at the end of the game. In other words, they didn't really have a chance to win the game in several of those games.
So you're saying that stat in this case is a bit deceiving.
A bit deceiving, exactly. Now, the turnover ratio is where they're going to decide their year this year. They were a minus 24, and I think they were amongst. I didn't write down exactly where they were in overall turnovers, but they were they led the league in fumbles lost, and they were seventh in the league in most interceptions thrown. Um, and
Bad combo.
and Daniel Jones led the team in fumbles by a lot. He had 18 fumbles lost last year, 18, and he only started 14 games.
That seems
12,
like
sorry,
something he
12.
can correct.
It should be, but sometimes guys just have small hands and they lose the ball, or they have poor pocket sense and don't sense people coming behind them and get the ball knocked out. And so that's going to be the thing. He actually, his stats passing the ball were not atrocious. I think he had twice as many touchdowns as interceptions. Um, and he wasn't bad when he wasn't fumbling the ball. Although I will say they averaged only 5.7 yards per pass attempt, which is not good. Usually, something closer to 7 is good, and under 6 is bad, and well under 6 is very bad. So then the question is, they had $80 million of cap space. How did they use that cap space? Their big free agent signing, first they spent $28 million of it with keeping guys they already had. More than 16 million of that went to franchise Leonard Williams, and then the rest of it was nits and gnats here and there. So they didn't spend a ton of money keeping their own guys, but they did spend a lot of it on one player. Then they spent a lot of it on James Bradbury for the Carolina cornerback, which was a big need for them. They signed him to a $14.5 million annual contract. And then they signed Blake Martinez, the inside linebacker for the Packers, who is rated to be a very good tackler and an awful pass defender. They re-signed Marcus Golden, which was great. So, overall, not a great free agency haul in my mind. They did spend the number 4 overall pick on Andrew Thomas, which was a stretch. I liked the second round pick in Xavier McKinney. Hopefully he'll pair well with Jabril Peppers. So the offense was okay, but not very, below average in rushing yards and passing yards. They were 19th in rushing yards last year, 18th in passing yards. I think some of that is the fumbles. It's hard to move the ball when you don't have it. And some of that is, the offensive line just did not move. It's hard to know how healthy Saquon Barkley was last year. He just never looked as electric as he was in his rookie year. So there's a lot of questions on offense, but their defense was atrocious. They were 30th in points allowed. They were 25th in yards allowed, 29th in takeaways. They were not good. And I don't think they did a ton to make themselves better. Blake Martinez and Xavier McKinney and James Bradbury, I don't know. I don't see this as if things go really well, maybe they get 7 or 8 wins this year. So that's where I come out on this. Joe Judge is a new head coach, no preseason. It's really hard to put your finger on the pulse of how good this team is. They should be better than they were last year, but last year they were bad. So I don't see this as going like San Francisco did a couple last year, to go from 4 wins to the playoffs and to the Super Bowl. Um, but it could be good enough to at least be around the edge of the playoff race, in December.
Yeah, especially with one extra spot. But if you're not agreeing with the Bozman here, you can let us know. But you can also go back and listen to his Met preview and how accurate that has turned out to be, and uh, very, very much on top of things. So I believe you with the Giants, and if you say 7 wins, that sounds reasonable. That doesn't sound like enough for the playoffs, but. Um, an improvement, and for a first year coach, that may be a good thing. You want to know you have something with the QB and something with the coach. I think that's really what the Giants need this year, to come out of the year. Okay, we're getting there and we're moving the right direction, and we got the right person to take us there on
Yeah.
both ends, the quarterback and the coach.
The
Now,
X factor is Daniel Jones. If he stops fumbling the ball, and I mean stops, not cuts it in half. If he stops fumbling the ball, this could be a totally different team this year.
that seems correctable. Hopefully he will, if you're a Giant fan. Now, if you're a Jet fan, you got a lot to worry about. I'll say right now, and if he hasn't done his homework, could the Bosman name a Jet wide receiver?
Um,
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. None are jumping to mind, right?
Salvador Dali, is he?
That's about as good a guess as you're going to come up with. They did draft one in the second round, and of course he's hurt and won't play week one. Um, they have the on the depth chart. They're listed starting wide receivers for this week against Buffalo are going to include names such as Jamison Crowder, Brashad Perriman, and Chris Hogan, who maybe you know as fourth receivers on other teams. Maybe you know them. Maybe you don't know them, and that's fine. We have a running back that's upset at the world. We have a good tight end. Not great, but good. We have a young quarterback who hopefully doesn't have mono, who I think is good. I happen to think Darnold is good, but uh, terrible might be a compliment for the offensive line. No real deep weapons, and a running back that doesn't like the coach, the quarterback, anybody. Now we go to the defense. Well, the best defensive player has said, I'm going to sit this year out. Now, I can't get on him too much for that, but it certainly doesn't help us. Some defensive injuries. And the best thing about the defense is you probably think the defensive coordinator knows what he's doing. But that's not enough. You need some talent. So I'm worried about the defensive talent. I'm worried about the offensive line. I'm worried about the receivers. I'm worried about the running back. And the defensive coach is our best coach, and he was suspended for a year. I won't go into that. Years ago, when he was a coach for New Orleans, and the head coach is, to put it mildly, far below average. I don't want to curse or anything like that. So what do I have to look forward to as the Jet? Well, Brady's had the division. That's nice. That's a positive for us? I don't know. Miami's probably a better team than the Jets. Buffalo is absolutely a better team than the Jets. New England still has enough talent to be a better team than the Jets. Somebody thought I was kidding when I said this number, but I'm absolutely serious. I think this is a 3-13 team.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I haven't done a lot of research on the Jets, but this isn't going to necessarily improve your mood. Last year, if you didn't know, the Jets were 31st in the league in points scored.
And now they
They were
could very well score the same or less.
and they were 32nd in the league in yards, in offensive yards from scrimmage.
Yeah. And who's their deep threat? Oh, wait, don't they have that Richie Anderson guy? No, they don't have that Richie Anderson guy. He's in Carolina. I'm just befuddled by any to call anything they did in the offseason moves. I don't see it. They taking the year off. I don't know.
Uh, Looked at they had 25 turnovers last year. Uh, Only 9 points. They had 6 touchdowns rushing the ball last year. Six,
Yeah,
and
and
averaged
that's with Bell. To
average.
solve that problem, they got Frank Gore, who might be older than us.
They averaged 3.3 yards per attempt rushing the ball last year.
Now
3.3.
I know the quarterback wasn't playing in some of those games, and I could look at it one way, tilt my head, find excuses here, find. You're saying maybe 6 or 7 wins for your team? Gosh, I don't see it for mine. I
Yeah,
really don't. They have a tough schedule. They'll probably be 0-4, 1-3, and it goes downhill from there. There'll be calls for the coach, and I would listen to them, but not a lot positive going on that I can see. And I'm not at this point in the year. I tend to be, well, maybe they can squeak out a wild card, or the Jets are good. No, the Jets are better than the Patriots. I'm usually optimistic at this point. So for me to seriously say, if I had to pin down a number, it would be 3 for number of wins. That should tell you something.
and it's just looking at their schedule. They could really start the year 0-4.
Oh
The
yeah.
At the Bills tomorrow. At the home against the 49ers the next week. At Carolina and home against the Broncos. I don't know. Maybe they can win at home against Arizona. I would think that if the season hasn't fallen apart by then, that might be. Then they go out to the Chargers. They host the Bills. Kansas City at Kansas City. Home against the Patriots. At the Dolphins. Home against the Dolphins after the bye week. Uh, then the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know what that is. Uh, and then they get the Seahawks, the Rams, the Browns, and the Patriots. I mean, there's no obviously bad teams
No.
on their schedule.
If they play better than Miami, well, Miami's got a better coach, but if they play better than Miami, they got a shot against Miami. If New England's just totally tanking, I suppose they have a shot against New England, but I don't think New England will tank.
Yeah,
Um, I thought the Subway commercials were a bad idea for Belichick, but anyway, that that that's neither here nor there, and it's probably going to be a long year. If you have any hope as a Jet fan, look back to the opener last year where they had a 16-0 lead against the Bills. Unfortunately, from that point on, the entire season went down the tubes.
yeah.
They didn't win that game either.
I remember
So
somebody saying, "I can't believe the Jets lost that game," and I'm thinking, "You haven't watched the Jets very much, huh?"
yeah, really. Do you get out much? Do you get? Well, we should probably wrap it up. We're over an hour, so I don't want to make it too much of a burden for people to listen to. But Dave, it has, as always, it has been a pleasure, and it's been a pleasure this time. And you have anything else to say to the people out there?
We are in Baker Street.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill.